Oh, it's about that time of month again, and Anime Watcher has requested me to rant about Damon Garcia, however which way you want to say it. This channel is really fascinating to me because very rarely do we find an active YouTube channel making high quality content about liberation theology and going into the nitty gritty of Christianity and its greater context within the global left as well as the political landscape in general. There's a lot of things about the scriptures, uh, general history about Christianity that I was completely unaware of that Damon has explained in his videos that I didn't know about. A lot of scriptures that I've heard taken out of context that I otherwise would not have understood without the aid of his work. And a lot of the time, it feels almost like some of his videos are flying over my head, and that isn't to say that I necessarily misunderstand them, but at times I have to go back and watch them again after looking up some of the stuff that he's talking about, just because I feel so far removed from the Christian world that sometimes when he's talking about these things, he'll bring up a lot of terms or he'll make references to things within the Bible or surrounding Christianity that I don't understand or don't have the context for or simply don't know the definition for that particular term. So I often have to jump around a little bit when watching his videos. It's not all of them are super complicated. Like he has videos like rebuking the idea that Jesus was a capitalist or whatever from the PragerU video. And in that video, like everything he says makes pretty clear sense. But he has a number of videos that are more in depth that require you to look a little bit beyond the surface of what he's saying. And for that, I'm greatly thankful for his channel because he can produce high quality, in depth videos about these topics that are, by and large, pretty alien to me. He also does a lot of self help videos, which I think sort of acts in contrast to the whole Jordan Peterson thing, where these really young guys who are kind of alienated by the world get swept up in this, Nietzsche was a Christian who wanted to tell you to clean your room kind of stuff. This very strange, morphed ideology that Jordan Peterson throws about you got to clean your room and all that. It's feels like he's taking the sort of self-help that people who are in a desperate situation who would take any kind of self-help that they could possibly get, uh, he's potentially using on people who may have lost their faith, bringing them over to it, or giving help to doomer leftists like myself. Um, where you look at someone like Jordan Peterson, and I've seen a number of people listen to his strange religious conservatism, and because they just needed to hear something at the time, it didn't really matter what group appealed to them. They just felt lost in their lives, and they needed to hear someone who was a good orator and had things to say that sounded smart and made them feel like they could believe in themselves, made them feel like someone else believed in them, brought them into a movement that they felt attached to in this despotic and alienated world. They identify with Jordan Peterson, and many of them end up converting to Christianity because they find the more theological or historical aspects that he describes in his lectures interesting. And I'm saying this as someone who used to listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson, not even on the basis of enjoying his work per se, or agreeing with the things that he's saying, but just because I was fascinated by him as an orator. I could listen to his voice all the time, almost like what people do with Noam Chomsky's voice as ASMR, where he talks in this very kind of slow, calm, methodical manner. I felt something to that degree with Jordan Peterson, except it was with excitement and vigor, interest, intrigue in what he was doing because he's just such a good rhetorician. He knows how to do rhetoric. He knows how to get you up on your feet and want to listen to what he's saying. And this is, again, with me listening to him while I could easily see through many of the lies that he was talking about historically leftist states. But I think what Damon does, and I wouldn't call him as good as a rhetorician as Jordan Peterson is. I mean, Jordan Peterson, he's professor, he's been doing this for a long time. I think he nonetheless provides that charismatic sense that you have a group that's going to make everything okay. You're in an alienated world, and I'm going to give you some self help while also giving you some cultural and economic analysis. Because that's really what it's about. It's about taking your message and then being able to apply it to these broader social and economic structures, but doing so through the veneer of self help, through the veneer of life advice. This is one of the things I really like about Caleb Maupin, actually, is that he has a podcast that he did with this strange, new agey, I think Indian fellow. Don't quote me on that. I don't really remember who he was, but it was called Socialism and Self Improvement. And if you go through Maupin's channel, he has a number of videos that talk very bluntly about the state of mental health in the USA. And he attempts to take the constructive tendencies, the city building tendencies, the willingness to construct things, build things, to use your labor for the betterment of society, and to also have society better itself through your labor, as well as your own individual self. Um, that idea that he often puts through his work, talking about the rise of depression and suicide, talking about potential solutions for it. You know, he talks a lot about like the growth mindset. Like he often says that, oh well, the people who are the most depressed in the world tend to be the people who don't feel that they have a sense of progress in their life. You know, they get up and they don't feel like tomorrow is going to be better than today, so why get up at all? And he connects this with the lack of full employment in the USA, the lack of good employment in the USA, you know, not even just full employment, but well paying jobs that feel like you're doing a service to your community, that feel fulfilling to you, that feel like they give you a sense of purpose larger than yourself. And by socializing the means of production, we could in turn make people less alienated as a result of bringing them closer to their community, giving them work that they find to be more fulfilling, and not having them be worried about being out of work because of the systemic unemployment that exists as an inherent part of capitalism, as well as giving people access to these other services like universal housing, healthcare, and so forth. A universal education, college education, which allows people to unleash their creative potential. That's something he talks about a lot. You got to unleash your creative potential. Those words have power to them. Unleash creative potential. When you explain why someone is depressed, why someone is alienated, and give them practical solutions for those things while coupling it with ideological and political messaging and training, these things can have a profound effect not just on the people who feel alienated already and need a way out, but also mobilizing the masses who don't even have those problems per se. They connect with the idea that you're putting forth. And so I think what Damon is doing is really special. And it's important because we don't have very many of these leftist self-help guru figures like Jordan Peterson, and I guess you could say to a lesser extent Ben Shapiro. He doesn't do it so much. There's that other guy, the Gorilla Mindset guy, Mike Cernovich, I think that's it, who wrote the really weird right-wing self-help book. The right has a lot of these guys. The right seems to be the only trend in the world that's optimistic. And ironically, it takes two Christian boys, two Christian leftist boys, to come out here and talk to the people who feel a great sense of alienation and tell them we have to lift ourselves up by our bootstraps and work to become better people as well as work to have a better world. And it again speaks to the profound impact of liberation theology on the self, on society, and morally. It's spiritually, and that's what religion is about. It's about enriching the spirit, being able to to have a larger sense of spirit within yourself that feels that makes you feel more whole as a person, more well-rounded, as if you're a part of something and can differentiate between right and wrong. And people like to be able to do that. And so what I really love about Damon's videos isn't just that he's so in depth about liberation theology and about other very important aspects of religion and politics and how these things mobilize normal people who may be religious and so forth to see the lies that the right presents about Christianity, but also to be able to attach themselves into a larger movement that will ultimately benefit humanity, to be able to take these atomized and forgotten people who are throughout the US and other countries, and to be able to tell them you have a place in this world, and you can unleash what makes you special as an individual, in turn to improve your life and the lives of those around you. I really like that message a lot. And while I may not personally be a Christian, there's a lot of things I want to learn about Christianity. I think it's a very interesting religion. I respect his work immensely for what he is doing to help people who are in a more alienated state of mind, to educate the masses on how their religion is able to play into a larger political and social movement that has liberated hundreds of millions of people throughout the world. Especially because socialism and communism tend to be seen as atheist ideologies because of certain mistakes that the Soviet Union and others made historically, in reference to like atheist education and stuff. I don't support that. I'm in favor of secularism, but and even though those countries did, promote the religions and cultures of a number of minority groups, there was still nonetheless atheist education in those countries, and I think that was a mistake, an infringement on the freedom of those within the country. And so, because there is that perception there due to those countries, and I mean, those aren't the only socialist countries that existed. You have like Nicaragua now, where the slogan is Christianity, Solidarity, and Socialism, but you probably wouldn't know that without getting beyond the surface level of how leftism is talked about in our modern day. You read the headlines or you just listen to what everyone already says, because the media is owned by billionaires, and the narrative is strictly controlled by the US government and those who agree with it, that we all kind of just repeat the same ideas about these things. There isn't so much of an incentive to research them and to really learn about the nitty-gritty behind them. There's actually disincentives in order to do those things. You're outcasted, you're considered lesser than for having done that. And so this very common lie that's levied against Marxism and socialism, I think it's very good that Damon is debunking this thing. And I like his videos. I'm looking forward to watching more that he produces. Anime Watcher originally wanted me to do a communist tier list, but I've done the tier list before with a friend of mine, and it would be kind of exhausting to have to do it again, especially because I don't remember who a lot of the figures on the tier list were, and I don't quite have the time at this moment. So he switched over to having me rant about Damon Garcia. But thank you to Anime Watcher for the rant, and I'll see you guys in the next one.